Is being a tech leader something you should go for? Is it for everyone? How do you know if it is or if it's not? We all want to get paid, and tech jobs pay well, but leadership's where the real money's made, right? You don't really have to do any work. You just tell other people what to do. It doesn't seem so hard. That's the logical path. But the truth is, management is not for everyone. How do you know if it's for you? Every industry has its pros and its cons, but in general, everyone knows the plan. Get promoted to management to increase your salary. But tech is one of those special fields where that plan doesn't really apply. You can remain a high-level engineer or developer and command a lucrative salary, so you don't have to chase that manager title to make a good living. Let me start by saying that one isn't necessarily better than the other. Both paths have their advantages and disadvantages, so it really comes down to what you want to accomplish professionally. I know, that sounds like a cop-out, but it isn't. If you want to go the management route, you have to ask yourself a few questions. Are you management material? Of course, everyone says yes when asked if they're management material, but be honest, do you have that skill set? Are you able to have those difficult conversations? Would you be able to fire someone? Would you be able to tell someone that you expect more from them? These are all difficult conversations to have. Are you able to mentor people? Are you able to command a team and convince them to buy into the big picture? Are you able to reach out and start conversations with other teams? Also, I asked if you were management material. I didn't ask if you had leadership potential. These are two different things. Just because you don't have a manager's title doesn't mean that you aren't a leader. Many leadership aspects required from managers also apply to senior level engineers and developers. For example, senior level engineers and developers need to be able to vocalize their opinion on the best technical move forward. People rely on them to make technical decisions. People rely on them to bridge the gap to other teams as they have the highest level of competency. So, in either position, a senior developer or manager, both need to possess leadership qualities. Both need to be able to gain the trust of those around them. Both need to be able to describe their vision and their roadmap to get there. But the end game is where things change. Senior developers and engineers tend to drive implementations while managers drive the bigger picture. This gives you a glimpse into the skill set required. If you're driving an implementation, you'll have your hands on the keyboard. You'll have to figure out how the solution works and interacts within the technical frameworks of the organization. You have to have the intricate technical details and create technical solutions when things don't work as expected. You're the person that's in the weeds. But from a manager's perspective, while you understand the technology, you may not know all of the technical nuances. You're more interested in how the technology helps the organization as a whole. Will the solution lay the groundwork for other initiatives from other teams, for example? So, as a senior developer or engineer, your primary focus goes like this: technology, people, then everything else. Whereas a manager handles people first, then technology, then everything else. It doesn't seem so different, but it is. As a manager, people are your number one priority. Whether it's dealing with people on your team or other teams, people are the focus. So if people are your number one priority, well, you guessed it. How are your people skills? Do you like to talk to people? How do you handle yourself when surrounded by 100 strangers? Are you able to control a conversation? Yes, all those people skills, all those manager skills will apply to you. Just because you're in technology doesn't change that. Another question to ask yourself before making the leap to management is, what level of control and responsibility do you want? As I mentioned, managers have to interface with other teams. They work to bring solutions into the big picture. Is this the level of control that you desire? This gives you more control at a macro level. You're more involved with the selection of the technology and its impact on the company. You're ultimately responsible for the success or failure of an initiative as it was your decision. Whereas the senior engineer is more laser focused on the actual hands-on keyboard implementation, the actual technical work. So as manager, while you may have more control at a higher level, you don't have actual control since your hands are not on the keyboard. Yet you, as the manager, are responsible for the entire initiative. So can you handle that situation? Again, this isn't to say that one's necessarily better than the other. It's really more about where you want to take your career. From my own personal experience, I've noticed that there's definitely pros and cons. As a senior level engineer, I was paid well. I had a certain level of responsibility, and I did work a lot of hours. But there were more Ebbs and flows. Sometimes work would get really intense, and other times things would slow down. In either case, it felt like I had more flexibility. For example, I never gave much thought to taking time off. There was always someone available to pick up the slack. As a director, while I do make more, I also work more. It seems like the work is more sustained. There are fewer ebbs and flows. There's always some initiative to consider and people to work with. I'm not in the weeds technically anymore, so you'd think that I'd have more personal flexibility, but it's quite the opposite. For example, when I take a vacation, it affects a larger swath of the organization, and as a result, I rarely take time off. But in terms of deliverables, as an engineer, I won battles. As a director, I win wars. As an engineer, my deliverables would shape how we work within our teams. But as a director, my deliverables shape how the organization works. The impact to the organization is much greater in upper management as opposed to senior engineers or developers. So if you want to have more of an impact to the organization as a whole, then management could give you that extra level of control. If you prefer to stay closer to the technology and create solutions within the technology, then engineering and development may be a better fit for you. But what happens if you're a high-level engineer or developer, yet you want to have greater impact to the organization? Sure, moving into management could do that, but perhaps you don't have all those people skills. The life of a technologist is mostly in front of a computer screen. So when are you supposed to develop those management-style people skills? That's a natural concern, but those skills are just like any other skills. The more you practice, the more you learn. I was able to make the leap from engineer to upper management, so it's not impossible. Sure, it was tough and awkward at first. I definitely had to ramp up, but if I could do it, you could do it. Someone once told me that the best managers are the ones that never set out to be managers. So if that sounds like you, maybe it's time to give it some real thought. And if ultimately your goal is to become a C-suite executive one day, well, you don't normally see senior engineers or senior developers making the leap to CTO without first going through upper management. These are just some of the things I noticed as I made the transition to upper management. Leave me a comment if you have other questions, and if you're still unsure if upper management appeals to you, watch this video where I lay out expectations versus reality of upper management.